The American cranberry is a native crop which has been cultivated in the US for a little over 200 years. In 2023 alone, upwards of 8 million barrels of cranberries were produced in the United States with a production value of nearly $35 million. However, with the increased restrictions on pesticide usage since the early 2000s due to environmental safety reasons, cranberry bogs are now seeing the resurgence of one of their most dangerous pests, the blunt-nosed leafhopper. How do you monitor and manage false blossom and blunt-nosed leafhoppers? What preventative measures do you take to avoid the disease?
So with the blunt-nosed leafhoppers and the false blossom, we do a lot of scouting and try to monitor the population and then decide whether or not we need to take action from there. And then we work with our entomologists at Rutgers to kind of figure out what the best thing to do is. So a lot of sweeping and a lot of just keeping our eyes open for the insect.
Depending on the bog, we do 2 to 6 sweep sets per bog, and the sweep set being going with the sweep net 25 times back and forth. We bag the sample with the blunt-nosed leafhopper being so small, we don't feel super comfortable to be able to do a good count in the field. So we bag them, bring them back here to our office, count them using a microscope if we feel that's necessary, and then we go from there. We decide if we should treat or not based on the amount per sweep set we found. Now that's a whole nother interesting question. What is the threshold for treatment?
There's a couple different approaches that we're using right now in terms of the false blossom infected plants. Do we kill the plant? Do we let it grow? In our case, we've been very fortunate to where it hasn't had a really adverse effect on our production numbers. Our production numbers are still very, very strong. So what that means is the rest of the vines within the bog that are in the bog are not infected, and they're relatively strong vines. So we're at a crossroads to where you have to decide, okay, do we want to kill infected uprights, or do we want to try to do a better job of controlling the leafhoppers to prevent the spread?
One of the things that we do typically has been to watch the population. We'll kind of clean it up, get a clean slate, make sure it's a good result from the treatment, and then we'll monitor over the next couple of years. And I'm not going to spray for 2 of them, but when the numbers start to increase, sometimes you really don't have a good window. So there's times where we just plan it for the next spring, and we've been running every 4 years or so. We tend to find the populations build up.
How has cranberry farming changed since false blossom disease and blunt-nosed leafhoppers came to your farm? How has false blossom affected your yields and farming practices?
In my experience, and I think Brendan would say the same thing too, in some of the newer varieties, it seems more susceptible. There were certain sections of the farm where we had to pay attention more to potential false blossom strikes. And then if we did find numbers, we'd put a spray on there, which was always tricky as you're trying to navigate that window from finding them to right up against when you're putting bees out for pollination.
In the field, they're kind of those infected uprights sitting there providing a reservoir for further infection. If a leafhopper feeds on them, goes to an uninfected plant, then the false blossom is spread even more.
Yeah, sanding's the only thing that we've done. The only other option that I know of is to rip the vines out and replant the bog. And when you have some false blossom, but it hasn't taken over yet, you still can get fairly decent yields on a bog.
As a farmer, what are your priorities for scientific research on false blossom and blunt-nosed leafhoppers?
Without a doubt, we have to understand what varieties are appealing to the leafhoppers. That's a big piece.
I'm very interested in trying to get a label for something that is environmentally friendly and blunt-nosed leafhopper lethal.
How to manage it once you have it. Is there anything you can do to get rid of it, to stop it from spreading, beyond just managing your leafhoppers?
What's the full life cycle of the leafhopper? When are they spreading this? Where are they coming from? And when should we spray them at what threshold?
We want to know on the front end how not to have it in the first place.
If you could give one piece of advice to farmers who don't have this pest yet, what would it be?
My advice to someone that doesn't have it yet would be simply to keep your eyes open and make sure that you are always, scouting, keeping an eye on your blunt-nosed leafhoppers, and looking at your vines to make sure that you don't have it in your bog.
Find out what it looks like, get a good search image, and recognize it early to get on top of it.
Controlling leafhopper population is the very first step, and then monitoring the condition of the vines at the same time is the number 2 piece.